many of you in this room have you been told you were great before? Madam Contest Master? Fellow Toastmasters? Distinguished guests? Well, maybe. I have been told I was great all my life. From the time I was this high to the time I was this high. Now I know what you're thinking, there's not a lot of growth there. And you would be right. Because it wasn't until I challenged my greatness and went down the road to greatness that I found my calling. Because the journey is so much better than the destination. My greatness lies in the fact that I'm a writer. My mother said I exclaimed at the age of 4 that I was going to be a writer. I've been carrying a pad of paper and a writing utensil in my pocket since I was 7. I know all the rules of English. I before E, except after C, and the thousands of words where the E comes before the I and there is no C, which is just weird. Never end a sentence in a preposition. For I am the grammar snob about whom your mother told you. And never start a sentence with and. Because of my obsession with English, I was always good. I got straight A's. Grammar school, junior high school, senior high school. And when I decided to go to college, I joined the journalism curriculum because it was the only hands-on writing curriculum that they have in college. Mark Twain was a journalist. I liked Mark Twain. Ernest Hemingway was a journalist. But I figured it was probably very good training, so I enrolled in the journalism program. At the end of my freshman year, my journalism instructor came up to me and said, "Tom, as far as I'm concerned, you're already professional. I don't think there's anything else I can teach you." I know, right? Because I'm great! But I decided to do something I had never done before that day. I decided to challenge it. And I drove down to the local newspaper. I knew the managing editor. I sat across from his desk and I said, "John, Marge just told me that I'm great, that there's nothing else she can teach me, and I would like to challenge that. Do you have any summer internship programs?" He said, "Well, yes, we do." "Can you start Monday?" "Well, yes, I can." So that Monday I drove down to the newspaper office and I wrote my first story. In those days you typed out on a typewriter, on pieces of paper. And to edit the story, they would mark it up with a pencil. And if they had to move paragraphs, they ripped the paper and taped the paragraphs into the new section. I turned in my story. Bob Satterthwaite was the copy editor that day. Bob was a cantankerous old crank. And he walked up to me with my copy, Marlboro cigarette hanging out of his mouth, and it's full of lead and Scotch tape. He stood in front of me, he crumpled it up, he threw it at my forehead and said, "Rewrite that, I can't turn that into the proofreader." What? I'm not great? That was the first time in my life somebody told me that I was not a great writer. And it woke me up. For 15 years, I worked as a journalist. And every day I had an editor or another reporter who would say to me, "Maybe that's not the right word you want to use. Maybe that paragraph belongs someplace else. Did you ask this question when you were interviewing the subject?" And for 15 years, I had supportive critics every day challenging my writing. and I was on the road to greatness. After 15 years, I went to work on Capitol Hill for a congressman as his press secretary, and all of a sudden, I was great again. I had no supportive critics. But by that time, I knew I needed them. And so I sought them out, other writers on Capitol Hill, who we would share our writing and give each other feedback. I hooked up with former colleagues to get feedback from them. I'm in the process of writing a book, and one of my former colleagues is now a journalism professor at California State University. I sent a draft of the first chapter to her. She made lots of suggestions. The one that will always stand out, though, is if your intention was to aggravate and alienate every female on the planet, then you hit your mark. If not, you might think about rewriting. I need this grief. I've been a professional writer for 30 years. Well, yes, I do. Because it's those supportive critics that take you down the road to greatness. A destination you will never reach, but the journey is great. When I came to Toastmasters, I found a home here. Because we have supportive critics in Toastmasters. We call them evaluators, but it's the same concept. And being Toastmasters, you already have the model for going down the road to greatness. Knowing that being great is not achievable, but the journey is what matters. God bless, Master.